I'm Mike. I'm 37 years old. I'm an adult living with cystic fibrosis. I guess my biggest interest in life is music. Has been since I was a child, especially guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was about 6. I'm also really interested in bodybuilding. I did amateur bodybuilding when I was younger, while my lung function allowed me to do that. And now, as an adult, I'm now 7 years post-transplant, and I'm back into my bodybuilding again, which is a big passion of mine and something I really love to do. So at the moment, I live with my mum and dad, and my sister and her husband and her 3 kids, they live here as well. So we're all here. All my immediate family is here. I've got three people that I would consider my absolute best friends, but they're all back in New Zealand. And now, actually, very luckily for me, I now have a girlfriend as well, as of about 2 months ago, which is the first time in a very long time. I was definitely reluctant, I suppose. Let's go back first. I was very reluctant as a young man. So when I was a lot younger, when I was at primary school, it was actually something that I was extremely ashamed of and fiercely private about. So very, very few people, in those days, no one, apart from obviously my family, nobody knew that I had CF. So to the point that when I was at school, I used to eat with all of the other kids at lunchtime and not take any of my crayon or anything that I needed with my food, because I was so ashamed of people seeing me take tablets, and then proceeded to spend the second half of lunchtime pretty much every day in the toilet. So definitely not a good way to manage it, but that was my experience, and that's what I did at the time. Fast forward to when I went to college, so when I was 15, 16 years old, and I was still, I would say, in a similar mindset, and I was still the same in that there were only very, very few close friends that knew that I had CF and kind of knew a little bit about that and what that meant for me. I was still very private about it and didn't like people to know. But the people that I did let in, as it were, at that age, were my best friends, and I was very open and honest with them. And they'd been to the hospital and seen quite a lot. There wasn't really anything that I hid from them. It was all just open and honest. When it comes to relationships, I was always, right from day one, I was always just honest. I always just thought that was the best way to approach it. So I never tried to hide it or do anything deceitful, as it were. I just used to be open and just say, I have CF. This is kind of what that is. This is what I have to do to keep myself well, and etc. And people either accepted that or they didn't. And there were people that did, and there were certainly quite a few people that also didn't, which was pretty painful at the time as a young man, and it hurt. And there were times that was really difficult to manage. But at the end of the day, I respected their decision as well, and that it was too much for some people, and it was a lot to take on, for some people as well. Fast forward to now, my current relationship. She's amazing. She's been amazing, and again, I was just honest from day one. The subject came up pretty early on in the piece, and I just said, this is me. I've got CF. I just said a little bit about what it is and a very shortened version of what I've been through. And I guess what I always try to do as well is give them kind of some context and explain what that means in real terms and what I have to do every day to manage my condition. So when I had my transplant, like I said, I was in hospital for close to a year, and for I would say 85% of that time, I couldn't do anything physically. I needed complete care, and at the time I was married, and my ex-wife, she did the most of that role. I would say she was pretty much my primary carer while I was in hospital and post-transplant when I came out as well as some involvement again from my family, and particularly from my sister as well. I did struggle with it, yeah. I very much struggled with it. It made me feel, again, ashamed, embarrassed. Yeah, I struggled with it a lot. I struggled with it the entire time. It's probably fair to say that I never really truly accepted it. It was something that I found very difficult. I found it hard enough when it was the nurses, let alone my wife and members of my family. I just felt, yeah, it's probably quite harsh, I suppose, but ashamed is the way I felt mainly. In a lot of ways, I feel like despite my illness that I lived life to the max, and I did everything that I could when I was young, especially before the transplant, to do everything that I could that made me happy and enjoy friendships and relationships and all the things that matter. But at the same time, there were definitely lots of things that I felt that I was missing out on, especially once I got to that age, like 18, 19, 20, and people are starting to get married, people are starting to buy houses, people have got careers, people are having children, all of those kinds of things which I couldn't really do. It would have been very, very challenging at that time. It was only a couple of years after that when things started to decline quite rapidly with my health, so it wasn't really doable. So yeah, definitely, I felt that with those things for sure. I think my advice would be to don't be hard on yourself. You're in a situation that is not of your making. It's not your fault. That's something that I struggled with a lot in my life was blame and guilt. So the first thing would be don't feel guilty, and I suppose the second main thing would be enjoy the time that you've got and do the most you possibly can with it, rather than focusing on things that you can't change and things that you want potentially maybe, or things like that. I suppose focus on what you can do. Focus on the positives as opposed to the negatives. It's a bit cliched, I know, and at the time, if someone had come to me when I was 18 and said focus on the positives, I probably wouldn't have responded too well. I probably would have been not the friendliest response. But now, 20 years later, looking back, that's definitely what I would tell my younger self. I would say, stop feeling guilty, stop blaming yourself, and just do your best to enjoy your life as much as you possibly can. I did start going to counselling when I was quite young. I was about 18 when I first started that. That was actually part of us service / less service, if you like, through the CF team that I was under in Auckland when I was in New Zealand. And I would definitely encourage that from a young age like that. I think, if nothing else, going to a psychologist is, the way I've always looked at it, is they're not necessarily there to fix all your problems, but they're an impartial third party that looks at things in a different way to your friends and your family look at it, and they can give you perspective. That's the way I've always used psychologists, and it's been extremely helpful to me. But then, like I said, just having a solid support friend and family network around you, is super important. That was huge for me, especially once I got a little bit older and I had kind of got over the stigma of being a person with CF and had let everybody in. That was really, really beneficial as well. And I would probably say that doing that from a younger age as well, like again, and from an advice point of view, I would absolutely say don't do what I did. I would do the opposite now if I could change that. As a young guy, starting school 5, 6, 7, 8, even going back as young as those years, I would say let everybody in. I suppose, well, honestly, when it comes to the issues that I brought up, like houses, careers, babies, all that kind of stuff, I've never actually discussed that with anybody really. I think certainly something that I would change and something that I see as a failing in myself is that I internalized a lot rather than seeking help and seeking advice and talking to my friends about those things and talking to my peers and my parents, even relatives. I pretty much just didn't talk about it. That was my way of dealing with it, was to ignore it basically and just soldier on, just get on with it. And to a certain point that can work, and that worked for me, I suppose, in a way. But like I said, if I could change it now, I would definitely go back and I would do the absolute opposite. I would be very open with everybody, and I would discuss those things, and I would say, this is how I feel, and this is how that makes me feel, and get everything on the table and sort those issues out for yourself, apart from anybody else, for your own peace of mind. So now, yeah, it's my whole way of thinking has completely changed now as an much older person, I suppose, in that now I'm just brutally honest and open with everything. And my partner and I, we've been very much on the same page from day one about that for both of us, in that we're both open books. Ask anything, talk about anything, get it on the table and discuss it and figure out how that works for both of you, as opposed to not, and things going unsaid. And then, speaking about past experiences, that's where resentments and that kind of thing, those kind of things are born out of just bad communication. And in my experience and from what I did, just keeping things to myself basically and not talking about it. And I think the one word that I would use to summarize it is liberating, because for a very, very large portion of my life, I spent so much time and so much energy trying my level best to make sure that people didn't know, that people didn't find out, like that they didn't see me taking those tablets over there, or they didn't see me getting sick and needing to go into hospital. I kept all of that stuff really, really under wraps and really private. And even after school, I had let quite a lot of people in by that point, but not everybody. And I was still in the same mindset of ignore, I guess. My whole thinking and my whole idea was just do what you can do while you can do it, and don't let CF impact that. That can just be over there. That's kind of the monkey on your back, but nobody else needs to know about it. Whereas now, yeah, completely opposite, and it feels great. It feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Just being able to be so honest and so open with everybody I meet, and I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm not ashamed to tell people that I have CF and that I've got issues and that I've got things going on, because the reality is that everybody's got something anyway. Everybody's got some form of something going on, whether it's a health issue, or whether it's a relationship issue, or whatever, financial. Everybody's got something. So, I guess part of my thinking was always that it was such baggage. That's the way that I looked at it. Especially going into new relationships, I viewed it as just enormous baggage. And people that I've spoken to, and I suppose keeping it current, speaking about my current partner, she's got 2 kids, and to her, that was baggage. But for me, that wasn't baggage at all. I thought that, my CF and my issues, that was way, way bigger baggage, but she didn't see it that way. And that's the interesting thing as well, is now, doing those things and being honest and being open and opening yourself up. Again, it's kind of like the psychologist. You get other people's perspective, and that is so helpful because I've gone along for so many years kind of like this, going, this is how I have to be and this is how I think about it, and not really knowing or gauging what other people have said or have to say on it because I'm not letting them in anyway. And now you get other people's perspective, and actually it makes you feel so much better about yourself and your situation, because it's like Ali, my partner, she always says, I wish you could see what I see. I wish you could see yourself through my eyes, because I suppose this is probably quite a normal experience for a lot of other CF people as well, and that is, my entire life I've been really brutally hard on myself. And that was all part of that psyche, and that, don't let anybody know, stay strong, it was just all part of that. And now I've kind of brought all of those walls down, and I just let everybody in, and I'm just totally honest and open with everybody, and yeah, it feels great.